Hello everyone. It's November 11th. It's 8:30 here on the East Coast in the evening, Eastern Standard Time. And it's November and I had so many topics that were recommended to me to discuss in this month's video blog post. But being the fact that we're going into the holiday seasons, I wanted to change pace a little bit and talk about us. So the topic of tonight's blog post is us. And it's going to be short and sweet because things like this are pretty direct. Now, when I refer to us, what am I talking about? You, me, our children, our family, our friends, basically people in general. We're going into a beautiful time of the year. Thanksgiving is coming. The Jewish holiday season is coming. Christmas holiday season is coming. And these are the most, or supposed to be the most happiest times of the year for people. But the reality is, for many people, it's not. We live in a very difficult world today. People are struggling financially. Although unemployment is down, the job market is up. There's still people that are struggling because a lot of people are recovering from whatever financials they may have, even though they might be working. So I want to talk about that a little bit because the other thing about this time of the year, and excuse my voice because I'm just kind of getting over a cold, but the other thing about this time of the year, and statistically, it is the most depressing time of the year for people that have depression issues. It is the highest time of the year of suicides when it comes to hotlines and people that need help and so on and so forth, because a lot of people are alone this time of the year. It might be by choice or it might be by circumstances. But as joyous as these holiday seasons are, the reality is for many people, they are not. And what we need to do as people is not forget those people, not to alienate those people, but also not to let those people that may be suffering from these type of things in our family, our friends, or whatever, bring down the joy that we feel as we enter all these holiday seasons. So how do we do that? How do we manage us? And I'm asked that a lot. My input on QR.com has increased dramatically. I'm now answering 40 to 60 questions almost on a daily basis, almost to the point that I just can't keep up to it. And that's not counting the ones that come to me through my website. And I really try my darndest within the time frames that I have to answer all of these questions. And some, unfortunately, I just don't answer because some of them, I don't want to say they're not valid questions because every question is valid. Any educator will tell you that. But some questions people could just simply find their answer to on the internet. So I try to answer the questions that are a little bit more important or more detailed, that are not just simply a matter of Googling it and getting your answer. So when we talk about us, what am I referring to? I'm referring to our mental health, our physical health, and us as beings, because we're no good to anybody else unless we're good to ourselves first. That's the one thing that most people don't realize. I know a lot of life coaches, a lot of mentors, a lot of people that are very deeply involved in the self-help environment because they truly want to help other people. And the one thing that they do is they do not take care of themselves. That is so critical. I try to help as many people as I can. It's what I've done my whole adult life as a career in pre-hospital medicine. But the one thing that I learned very early on is that I am no good to anybody if I am not good to myself. So I have to take care of me first. Now that may sound selfish, but in reality it is not, because you're going to be able to do much better for other people if you're content within yourself. So what does it take for you to be content within yourself? I can't answer that question for you. I could certainly tell you what works for me. And what works for me is very, very simple because I don't try to complicate issues. When we have issues that develop in our lives, rather than break them down to basics, we complicate them. And we complicate them because we don't break them down to basics. And let me explain what I mean by that. There are two things that are involved in anybody making a decision about anything in their life. And that is practicality, and you address being practical through logic, and emotions. You cannot properly make a decision unless you take both of those factors into consideration. The practicality of what you need to decide and how you feel about it. These are very important and valid things. It's how you approach that really determines whether the choice you make is going to be correct or incorrect. And I'll briefly explain that. If you try to make a choice where you mix emotions in with logic, you will never be able to come to a correct choice. If you do, trust me when I tell you, it is strictly by pure luck. So you need to break that down into basics. So rather than try to complicate your choices, break it down into those two things. Now, not everybody can do this, but with a little bit of practice, you can. First, look at what decision you need to make and remove your emotions from it. I don't care whether it's relationship, whether it's financial, I don't care what it's regarding to. Take the emotions out of it for step number one. Look at it from a logical and practical standpoint. Can you do it? Can you afford it? Do you want to do it? If you do want to do it, how could you make it work? Okay? Kind of approach it from a logical standpoint. Now, when you do that, you're going to come up with a decision, but that is not your final decision, because now you have to take your emotions and add that into the computation. How do you feel about all of this when it's all said and done? You know, and this becomes very difficult primarily in relationships, not so much when it comes to buying a car and buying a house and things like that. A lot of it those things just boil down to dollars and cents. But in relationships, emotions play a very large factor in your decision-making process. So let's say, as an example, you have to decide whether to stay in or not to stay in a relationship. Well, now you come up with your pros and cons, you approach it from a logical standpoint, and now you're going to come up with a decision. And that decision, after you look at your piece of paper, may say to you or dictate to you, no, you should not stay in this relationship. Well, that's easier said than done, because now when you add the emotional content back in, you may want to stay in that relationship. So now is the time where you add your emotions back into that equation. And now you see how that first decision has changed. It's not so easy anymore, and it's not so logical, and it's not so practical. But because you do have a practical and logical solution, once you add your emotions into it, now you could look at your new decision and decide if that is the best decision for you. Now, that's the brief kind of summary to it all. You could always email me with any questions. My email address is on the bottom. Now, let's take that one step further. Now, once you've come to a decision, now you have to make it and follow through with it. That is sometimes the difficult component. So for me, once I do that, I have that peace of mind that I've made a choice. So how I explain when I'm being good to myself and taking care of myself is at the end of every day, when I get into bed at night, the first question I ask myself, besides being thankful for all the things that I have in my life, the first question I ask myself is, everything that I dealt with today, did I do the right thing? And the right thing is not so much based on what I think is the right thing as much as it is based on, was it morally correct? Did it fit into my values? Did it fit into my beliefs? If I could get in bed every single night and say I did the right thing every single day, then I'm being good to myself. And I have that peace, so now I could go on and help other people, whether it's in the medical field, whether it's in talking to them, whatever the case may be. So you first have to take care of you. Now, as you go into the holiday season, there's going to be things that you're going to be happy about and things you're not going to be happy about. And that's how you're going to deal with those things. And once you do, you have to have the ability to let them go. Now, what does that mean when we say let them go? We never ever let anything go as people. Don't kid yourself. I don't care who you are or where you are in the world. You could tell me you're over your past, and I'm going to tell you you are never over your past. Because your past is part of an experience that you had in life. If it was a bad experience, you're never going to get over it. However, you can accept it. And what I mean by that is every minute of the day is a different experience in life. Once that minute passes, that experience passes, and now you're on to the next minute. Hopefully, you've learned from the previous minutes in your life. So as you move on to the next set of minutes in your life, you make better decisions and better choices. The past experiences that you have, in many cases, for most of us, a lot of them are going to be great, but those aren't the ones that haunt us. The ones that haunt us are the ones that weren't great, the ones that had a very deep emotional impact to our life. And it's okay to carry them with you. There's nothing wrong with it. And if anybody tells you they don't carry their past into their future, they're basically full of shit, and that's the bottom line. Because everybody takes their baggage with them. The difference is there are people that could accept their baggage in their past, and there's people that cannot accept their baggage in their past. The people who cannot accept that are going to be the people that are always going to have problems with the present and will always have problems with the future. You know, none of us are perfect. I have done many things in my life that I don't want to say I regret, but weren't the best choices in the world. But the difference is I could look at them, I know what I did wrong, and I could accept them. So therefore, they follow me into my present and into my future, but they do not affect my present and my future. They do not affect the decisions that I make moving forward, with the exception of the fact that they were a learning process, and I use them as a point of reference. So when we talk about you being good to yourself, you have to be able to accept yourself for who and what you are, who and what you've done, and put it in the proper place that it belongs. And when you do that, believe it or not, you can get up every single day and be very, very happy. Because God knows, we all know that crap is going to happen to us on a daily basis that's going to piss us off, get us aggravated, and we're going to want to throw all the papers on our desk up in the air and walk out of the office and say, I don't need this shit. The reality is, we all know we can't do that, all right? But you have to be able to put it in its place. So as you enter this holiday season, I guess what my take-home message to you about all of this is, regardless of what your religious beliefs are, your cultures, when your holiday should fall, understand that there are going to be things that are going to bring up bad memories, all right? For me, the biggest thing is the loss of my parents. I've lost my parents now for a few years, and the holidays just do not seem the same. And I struggle every year to keep the traditions going for the sake of my children so they could pass them along to my grandchildren and so on and so forth. Because that is what we do as parents. But it's not an easy thing, because every holiday that comes, I miss my mom and dad not being at the table. But the fact is, I accept it. It's a part of life. They live in my heart. I feel that they are there in spirit, and I celebrate that with them. And I'm happy for that. I'm happy for those memories. So if you look at things in a positive way versus a negative way, then you're going to find it a lot easier to cope with things yourself as you enter these holiday seasons. So that's my take-home message to you when I talk about us, is take care of yourself before you're going to be able to take care of anybody else. And as long as you're content with yourself and you accept yourself for who and what you are, you're going to have a very joyous and fulfilled life. And that's what I hope and wish for each and every one of you. So with that, thank you so much for viewing my video blog post this month. As I stated, my email address again is on the bottom. Please feel free to contact me with any questions, and I will be more than happy to answer them for you. Have a great evening, and talk to you again next month.